Got it. This meeting is being streamed live. Okay, hi everybody. I am here with Katie, and Katie is a financial planner. She was a previous former corporate lawyer, and she's going to talk to you and tell you how you can balance your budget.
Great.
Hey,
Great. Thank you so much for having me. Yeah. I wanted to do something kind of simple today. Obviously, everyone, if you're like, everybody wants something different when it comes to financial advice. Everyone's situation is different. But the more I work with people, I've been a financial consultant for over 2 years now, and the number of people who don't have any sort of budget at all is just astounding. And I always say, you know, if a track number grows, and if you're not tracking your dollars and watching where they're going, they're just going to end up going out the window. That's when you get to the end of the month and you're like, why do I only have $5 left? I should have more money than this. So I know that the idea, the term budget can give some people anxiety, but really the whole reason for having a budget is not to make you anxious, is for you to understand where your money is going and to know that you have a plan and that you're staying on track. So today I'm just going to give you 5 steps. I think they're relatively easy steps for how to create a budget and something that you can stick to. So first question I get is, where should I keep my budget? How should I keep it? Really, it's up to you. You know your personality. Would you rather have it, you know, in a notebook, something written down, where you're physically writing the numbers out? Would you rather have something on your computer or, you know, a spreadsheet, something like that? There are also apps that you can use. Warning, some of them you have to pay for them, but there are some great free ones out there. There's one that I like. It's called Every Dollar. There is a paid version, but there's also a free version. So you don't have to get the paid version. I highly recommend getting the free one and checking it out. And then if you feel like you want the upgrade, you can do that. But basically, it's whatever you're most comfortable with that you're going to stick to. Because if you don't do all these steps and actually stick with your budget and track your numbers, there's really no point to it. So however you want to do it, you can do it. Step number 1 is going to be to list your income. Sounds pretty easy, but one thing is to make sure you're listing your net income, the income that is hitting your checking account, wherever it goes, after you get your paycheck. Also, make sure you include all forms of income. If you are receiving Social Security, include that. If you have a side hustle, maybe you sell something at the farmer's market, be sure to include that. A question I get with the income is, some people don't have quite a steady income. You know, maybe you're paid hourly and the hours that you get are different every week. Maybe you receive tips at your job, something like that. If your income isn't steady, I have 2 recommendations. Either look at the last 3 to 6 months and take an average of what you have received, or if you really want to be conservative in your budget, take the lowest amount you've gotten in the last 3 to 6 months and use that as your income. That way, I'm not going to say you're guaranteed, but you're more likely to be hopefully getting more than that and be able to stay within your budget. So you can either take an average or just take the least amount that you've gotten for the last 3 to 6 months. So that's step number 1, list your income, list all your income and make sure it's net income. Step number 2, which is the hardest but most important step, is to list your expenses. So we know the money coming in, now we have to know the money going out. I recommend you break this down into a couple categories. The first kind of expenses that you're going to list are the necessities, you know, food, shelter, things of that nature. So make sure you list how much you spend at the groceries. Make sure you list your rent, utilities, that I would also include in the necessities, and transportation, whether that be your car, if you use public transportation, whatever it might be. Those are usually the 4 areas that I count as necessities, things that you need to make sure get paid every month because you need these things to live. The next area we're going to look into is going to be essential. So it sounds almost as important as necessary, but kind of a little step down. That's going to be your essential expenses every month. These are things like childcare, So you got to do something with your child, especially if you're working and you have younger children. Your insurance, if your health insurance isn't paid in your paycheck, you obviously have to pay that. Car insurance, house renter's insurance, things of that nature. Your bills, these are going to be essential. We also want to make sure that they're getting paid, obviously. Make sure those are listed. And then I always include pets. I think they're essential. I'm I'm a fur mom, so I make sure that their food, their vet visits, things like that are included. That brings me to kind of a side note. So some of these expenses are not going to be set in stone every month. Like you might not take your dog to the vet every month. Hopefully he's healthy. You only have to take him like once a year or whatever. Expenses like that, I would take what you usually would spend on your dog vet visit in a year and then just divide it by 12. So you're going to be saving that money every month so that you can pay that bill once a year. So if kind of like your income, if it's not steady, something that you pay every month, but you're going to have to pay it, maybe your taxes, things like that, license for your car, things that we pay like once a year, make sure to include those in your budget, but just break them down so you're saving just a little bit every month. All right, so we did our necessary expenses first and then our essential, and then we're going to get to our non-essential. I'm not going to tell you what your non-essential areas that you're spending money are. Usually those would be like entertainment, going out for dinner and drinks, things like that. A cleaning service generally would be included in non-essential. Some sort of personal care. Do you have to go and get your nails done? That might be more in the non-essential area. So kind of break your expenses up into these three areas. That's usually the most challenging one, is to kind of look at where all you're spending your money, because like I said, we tend to spend money without thinking about it, especially now that we've got debit cards and credit cards and things, and you can just tap it and you bought something, and then you're sitting there a week later and you're like, man, where'd that money go? Oh yeah, that's right, I forgot. Or you're running through Starbucks or wherever you get your coffee. So really take a look at where you are spending that money. Sometimes people can go back and look at it. If you do have most of your expenses on a credit card, you can look at your statement and kind of break it out like that. That's a very nice way to do it. If you pay cash, it might be a little more difficult to go backwards and look at your expenses. You might kind of need to take a month or maybe two and look at where you are spending your money and examine it that way in order to make the most honest budget you can. Because like I said, if it's something you can't stick with or aren't going to stick with, there's no point to it. So we did the hardest steps. We listed our income first, and then we listed our expenses. Now we're going to subtract our expenses from our income. In a perfect world, that will leave you with a positive number. You have money left over at the end of the month. You have more income than you do expenses. Perfect. What we want to do then is just kind of make sure that there's a place for that extra money. Make sure that it's, if you are given to charity or tithing or something like that, great, that's fine. And then make sure the rest of it is going into some sort of savings vehicle. Make sure you have that emergency fund. We're going to put into that. Make sure we've got that 3 to 6 months saved up. Put some towards your retirement, whatever it might be, but just make sure every dollar that you have left over has a place. What do you do if you're not so lucky and your expenses are higher than your income? That's one reason why we broke those expenses down. So we're going to look at those non-essential expenses first and see what we can cut out. If we do that and we're still upside down and you've kind of cut down all you can do, you're not going to Whole Foods to get your groceries anymore, you're going to the cheaper grocery store, then you might need to look into getting some sort of side hustle or some other way to make some income. But just want to make sure that your expenses are less than the income that you're bringing in at the end of the month. That's it. Then step number 4 is just going to be to continue to track your money. So I've got this list. I got all, my expenses written out. Every time I spend money, you're going to track it. I like to do every day, like the end of the day, because I know me. And if I don't do it, then I'm going to forget about it. Some people can wait until the weekend and can keep track and kind of track everything then, like do it on Sunday night while you're getting ready for the coming week. However it works for you, the type of person you are. But every time a dollar goes out, you're going to track it and put it into one of those expense categories and make sure that you're tracking every dollar, because that's how we're going to know and make sure that you know where these dollars are going. That's pretty much it. So then step number 5 is just to review your budget and kind of make adjustments when things change. Obviously, if you get a pay raise or unfortunately a pay deduction, you're going to want to reevaluate your budget. If you have a big event coming up, the holidays are coming up, you have a wedding, something like that, you're going to have a lot of money, reevaluate your budget then. If you're tracking your expenses and you realize I put in here that I need, $500 for groceries and I'm not spending that much, then adjust your budget accordingly and kind of, bump that number down a little bit. So then you're marking that money you're saving now to put into one of your investment vehicles. So that's really about it. Again, I know this is basic, but I wanted this to be kind of, hopefully answer some questions that you might be a little too embarrassed to ask someone, because you're like, I should know how to do this already. But the whole reason why I made the shift from the legal industry to the financial industry is because no one is teaching us this. And then we hit adulthood and we're pushed out of the nest and expected to know what to do with our money. And if we haven't received that education, we're kind of floundering. So I am always here. If you have some more specific kind of budgeting questions, I'm here to help. I think it's very essential, number 1 step to getting your finances healthy so you can get the rest of you healthy, like Andra helps you with. I can also answer any other sorts of financial questions you might have, but again, just kind of wanted to keep this basic, hopefully help everyone out there who might have any questions when it comes to just basic budgeting and how do I get started, kind of budget 101 things to get you on track and make sure that those income is staying higher than your expenses and you are set to live the rest of your life the way that you want to.
Okay, I have a couple of questions. Is that
Sure.
okay?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. So you talked about making sure that you're putting your money, the stuff that you have left over, if you're lucky enough to have
Yes.
something left over in today's economy, to put it somewhere. So, I mean, banks really have a very low interest rate. So can you make some suggestions? Because I know you deal with other things as well, and I'd like you to list them as well so that people know how to reach you and where they can get that help.
Sure, that's a great question. Yeah. I love banks for what they're used for, which is your emergency funds, your smaller amount of money. Yeah, because you're going to be lucky to you're going to get around 1% interest on that money. Meanwhile, the bank's taking your money and they're making a lot of money on their end with it. So love the banks for that emergency, short-term, small kind of money. If you have enough money left over at the end of the month, you're saving, you've got hundreds and hundreds left over, yes, we need to chat. There are plenty of other options for places that you can grow your money. Some of them that I love, where you can grow your money and take it out then tax-free, which I think is a huge benefit, especially when you're in retirement and kind of living on more of a fixed income. So absolutely, if you find yourself in a place like that, please let's chat and see what those options might be. Make sure that you are, if you have significant money to invest, just talk to someone. I'm not saying you need to hire them, but at least get some opinions and see where the best place might be. Because like Andra said, putting your money, saving thousands and tens of thousands of dollars in a simple checking or savings account is not the best place for your money. I know it might be tempting, especially when the stock market's doing this like it is right now, but we want to make sure that we can put your money in a place that it can actually grow for you and work for you. So yes, and that is one thing that I do. I am located in Indiana, but I actually work nationwide thanks to the beauty of technology nowadays. And I help with debt reduction, kind of why we were talking about budgeting today, but also short and long-term savings, retirement funds, making sure people are in a place where they can retire and live the lifestyle they want in retirement. I work in insurance protection as well. And then a big thing is wealth preservation, making sure that, because as much as we hate to talk about it, none of us are making it out of here alive, and making sure that we have everything set up so that our money is going to go to whomever, wherever we want it to go. So yeah, kind of A to Z when it comes to your money, but I'm really passionate about helping women, and especially women in transition, like divorce or retirement or just kids leaving the nest, things like that, helping them just get a handle on their money and making sure that they're doing what's best for them.
Okay, can you tell them how they could reach out to you? I know you're on Facebook, Katie.
I am. I'm on Facebook. I'm on Instagram as well, under your financial friend, Katie. And you can also email me. That's probably the best way to get a hold of me. And that would just be at khetrick, HETRICK, financial, all spelled out, at gmail.com. That's the best way to get a hold of me. And then we can have a free consultation, and I will just talk with you. You can tell me what your current situation is, where you want to be, and I can see if we can help you get there.
Okay, just a few more questions. Let's say somebody's like my age, I'm 55. Is it possible for someone, because a lot of people have never put anything away.
Right.
And then they get to be my age and they say, wow, am I going to be eating cat food when it's time to retire, So can you start as late as me and still have a more secure future?
Absolutely. I mean, it's like the old adage, the best time to plant a tree is 20 years ago, but the second best time is today. Would it have been better if you had been saving since you were like 25 years old? Absolutely. But we can't, I don't have a time machine. We can't do anything about that. If you start today, absolutely. There are some great ways to invest your money. Some places where we're getting like 15 to even 18% rate of returns on these vehicles. So yes, it is never too late. Don't think, well, I'm 55, I'm resigned to living this lifestyle the rest of my, no. If you start making good choices, start getting on that budget, so you can save some more money at the end of the month and then invest that money, absolutely, we can still help you with only a couple years until you want to hit retirement.
Okay, Katie, I'm so glad you came in. And maybe we'll do a follow-up down the road when we're talking about final expenses, because I really like what you explained to me about the different kinds of life insurance and how one, you just lose money and it's gone. And the other one you could actually use now while you're alive. That sounded amazing to me, instead of waiting till you were dead. So we'll have a follow-up on that, or if they can reach out to you. Okay. Did you have anything else you wanted to add?
No, just any questions that you guys might have that, like I said, if you think you're kind of embarrassed to ask it, I should already know this, please, I have no judgment. One reason I'm doing this now is because I've made the crazy decisions back in the day too. And we are all here to help each other. So don't judge anyone. And I'm always here to chat, even if it is just, hey, what do you think the best thing I should do with X would be? I can always give you some free opinions, and you can take and use them as you would like to or don't. But yes, I'm so happy that you asked me on today, and I'm just thrilled to be able to help your guests here in any way that I can.
Well, I'm really grateful that you came. I know that a lot of people are afraid to look at this at this time in their life. So I just wanted to put a thought in their head, because so many of us today just think that it's just us, that we're the only ones, or whether we're struggling or we're doing well, that nobody else, that we're unique. And we're not really that unique. We all go through the same types of things at different times in our life. So I just think it's good to have as many resources as possible.
Absolutely.
Okay, so I'm going to close this meeting out. You're going to stay with me for a minute.
Oh,
So we're going to go off live. Bye, guys. See you later.
Bye.
Say goodbye, Katie.
Bye.
Okay.